Hey guys, welcome back to 1,000 Movies Before You Die. Today we're going to be looking at 1952's Kansas City Confidential, one of my personal faves. Stick around and find out why this is one of the 1,000 movies to watch before you die. Find out why before you die. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're looking at 1952's Kansas City Confidential. This is a real fun film noir. Takes us from Kansas City down to Borrados, a fictional tropical country where things heat up, I guess, if you will. So anyway, this film takes us from a bank robbery in Kansas where four masked men they hold up a bank and in the process, they frame Joe Rolfe, who is an ex-con. He's also, I think it's mentioned that he's a war hero, and he drives a flower truck. And the crooks know that this flower truck always shows up at the bank at the same time, so they have a duplicate of the flower truck. And in the process of robbing the bank, they also happen to be framing Joe Rolfe, who is the driver of the flower truck. So of course, the police are going to suspect him. Now, the crooks have a little added twist to their robbery. They all are wearing masks to hide their faces, not just from each other, but not just from the public, but also from each other. This is a way for them to prevent squealing in case any of them are caught, since none of them can recognize any of the other of them, except for the main man, who is Mr. Big. He's a disgruntled ex-cop and he is planning the whole thing. He is the mastermind, if you will. So their plan after they rob the bank is to meet up in a few weeks in Borados, where they will divvy up the cash. And the whole time they are masked. So when they arrive down in Borados, they won't know who they are. They won't know who any of the other robbers are. And while they're waiting and cooling their jets, the police are working over poor Joe Rolfe. He's played by John Payne, and he's just an unlucky guy who, the cops are completely mistreating. They're beating him up like just these cops are complete a-holes trying to beat a confession out of him. If this is truly the way police work was done back then, I gotta say thumbs down to the cops back then. But my guess is this is embellished. I hope it's embellished. Anyway, I digress. The cops are working him over. Then they find out they discover the discarded second flower truck, which kind of exonerates our hero, uh, kind of our hero. And he now is free to go, but he is furious because he's lost his job in the process because, his employer says, I have no choice. It's too much publicity, the front page news that he was a suspect. So things are just not going well for him. And he decides that he's going to find these guys and get even. And so he tracks down one of them, Pete Harris, and he basically, after an altercation, he threatens him. And at just before this meeting, Pete had just gotten the telegram as to where the crooks are going to meet up, which is Borados. And so Joe finds this out from Pete, and he says that they're going to go down there together. He's going to force Pete to bring him along, and he's going to muscle his way in on the payout. He feels he's owed that since he can't find a job. He wants part of the cash. And so he goes down there with Pete. Now, en route, Pete is killed by some police officers who recognize him from another crime, and he, tries to pull his gun, and he gets killed. So now, armed with the telegram and the other half of a torn playing card, right? It's the I don't know, the King of Hearts or something like that, and that's his ticket to get in on the split up of the cash, on the divvying up. So he heads down to Borados, and there the other three crooks are waiting. Now they don't recognize each other except for the main guy, who is Mr. Big, who they all think is just an affable fisherman who's down there doing some fishing. And the three of them, the two real crooks, well, three real crooks. One of them is the affable fisherman. The other two guys, played by Lee Van Cleef, it is, and the other one is played by Neville Brand. I'll get into those guys. And so these guys and they don't know that the other one is a crook, right? And Joe Rolfe is down there as well, trying to muscle his way in. They think he's Pete Harris. And then we've got the mastermind who is down there as well. And that's the setup I mean, it's a long setup, and it is, the sort of long climax plays out down in Borados in this fishing resort, I guess. And it's one of those really cool settings like Key Largo, Cape Fear. It has the blowing palm trees and all that. It's really awesome. Now, all of this, as they wait to divvy up the money and all that, this disgruntled Mr. Big, he might have other plans as well. Maybe he wants to get the ransom money, not the ransom money, the reward money, and double cross, or maybe these guys are going to double cross each other, and then as they sort of figure out, who the other crooks are, if they try to eliminate each other in order to get more money. Are they going to find out that Joe Rolfe or that Pete Harris is actually Joe Rolfe? So that's what's going on down there. Now, all of this is complicated by the arrival of Mr. Big's daughter, who is starts falling in love with Joe, and this is sort of the love interest complication. Now, she's down there visiting her dad. She just thinks her dad is down there on a fishing trip. But he's not, he's very upset that she's there. And then, we've got ourselves a love issue where the father obviously doesn't want his daughter involved with any of these guys, and she, has the hots for one of them. And so we see how this all unravels. And that is, Kansas City Confidential. Now, I highly recommend this. This movie is so much fun. As I said, it's a bunch of mugs involved here. You've got Neville Brand, who is just one of the best faces in film. Lee Van Cleef, right? Also, and then of course the amazing Jack Elam, who is sort of this wallow-eyed, bug-eyed. I don't know what you call it. One of his eyes is wonky. He shows up in a lot of movies. You'll recognize him right away, and he just plays his role perfectly. And that's kind of what makes this film is just the characters. John Payne is really, he's um, no one to write home about. Let's put it that way. He's no one to write home about. He's good in it, but it's really the other crooks around him that are amazing, and some of their background is just really funny. Lee Van Cleef turns out he was an accountant, right, who arrives in Hollywood, and Jack Elam was also an accountant, and he was also a manager of the Beverly Hills Hotel for a while, right, and then plays this, constant heavy in movies. But Neville Brand, he plays this, mug again. He also played Al Capone in a lot of movies, always a heavy bad guy, but it turns out he was one of America's most decorated war heroes in World War II, right? So he's this really, this war hero guy. So, and the good guy, funnily enough, is John Payne. And he turns out, he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth, kind of doesn't really have anything like that in his background. And then unfortunately, through, I guess the death of his father, he has to drop out of prep school, and start singing in order to support his family. So you have these amazing backgrounds. Their backgrounds are the crooks are so mundane, right? And yet they turn out to be playing these hard crooks all the time. And this clean-cut good guy has this other weird story where he has to become a singer to support his family. Thought that was interesting. This movie, the way it goes from Kansas City to this tropical environment, the way the crooks are interacting with each other, the double crossing, the sort of moral ambiguity of our main character, Joe Rolfe. Because, after all, he's trying to muscle his way in on the money. You've got the really cool character of the father of the love interest slash police ex-cop. He's disgruntled because he doesn't get enough pension money, and something in the past, the way he quit, doesn't sit well with him. And is he involved in a double cross here? Like, what's his whole deal? Now, he obviously recognizes that Joe Rolfe is not Pete Harris because he's seen Pete Harris. So, but then now his daughter is in love with this Pete Harris guy, but he's not Pete Harris, he's this other guy. And so, he's kind of in a weird situation. And then, of course, the daughter, Helen, who is the dad slash police, all that. She's the daughter, and he's obviously trying to protect her. So you have this really cool, mix of personalities, motivations, what they're aware of, and it just mixes beautifully. It's well done. It's great. I have a real soft spot for this one. This is one of the first film noirs that I watched on my journey in film noir. Sorry, I just hate that word. But yes, and I watched it in a tropical environment, which was also really cool. I think I was in Nicaragua or something, and there was a balcony and there was some flowing curtains, and it was sort of a seedy kind of place, so it just fit perfectly what I was watching, to where I was, and it just that But aside from that soft spot, this is definitely one of the thousand movies to watch before you die. This is a great noir. This should definitely get more recognition than it does. You're going to watch this for some great performances, mainly from the mugs involved. It's kind of like where the mugs take over the show. I hope you enjoy this. Definitely give this a watch before you die. Get busy watching or get busy dying.